right, this next react is probably our last one for the day, but it's from Morphologist, and ooh, spicy title, dude. I didn't realize it was this bad. 25 plus features, Star Citizen 4.0 removed. 25? So the immediate thought, and he actually DM'd me first, but I was like, he was like, I don't know if you saw my video, but I want to know what you think. And we just talked a little bit. And I was like, let me tell you something. When I saw the thumbnail and title, I went, oh, there's going to be a Reddit thread and a Spectrum thread and a Twitter thread. So I hope you enjoy hate. Let's see what happens. But yeah, here's the video from Morph, and let's see what the actual 15-minute video has to say and not just the title.
By now, most of you guys have probably already heard that the next big patch for Star Citizen 4.0, which brings in pyro and server meshing and a ton of other features, has been delayed to the end of the year and has most recently been slimmed down quite a lot from its original planned feature set. But if you're like me and you were looking at the list thinking something was still missing from it, well, it turns out that you're not wrong. There were quite a number of features, in fact, that were originally planned to come within the next 12 months as of last year's CitizenCon in 2023 that just didn't end up manifesting in any way. They never made it onto the cards, and
oh, he's going back. Hell yeah, Morph. Yes. He's going back to SitCon 2023 and holding them accountable for that as well. Let's go.
and they're certainly no longer going to be in the next 4.0 patch.
Bring
with
the
some of them being the
receipts.
very reason why I was personally so excited about 4.0. So what are those features?
Here we
well,
go.
if they're not coming to you yet, don't worry, that's the point of the video. Sit back, relax, and let me show you exactly what we should expect to see, hopefully within the next couple of .x patches after 4.0, to really fill out that roster of features that most of us, including myself, really hope to see out of this next big step forward for Star Citizen. And if
Bro, I can't anymore. Every time, this is one thing that I've really noticed through reacting to other content is so often, because we're all still invested in the game, right? Like people think, oh man, you're just hating, or you're just this, you're just that. Everybody's pretty invested still, because it's always, well, hopefully this stuff comes in the next, the dot patches, right? And so hopefully, and it's not just more, this is everybody, right? We're all still here, and we're just kind of like, well, hopefully,
by any point in this video you think I've done a good job and you want to show your love and support, please don't forget to hit that
Hopefully
like and
ain't
subscribe button,
happening.
because it's how my channel stays alive. So, onto the video. Now first, before I go on, I just want to start by saying that the point of this video is not meant to be super negative. It's not meant to leave you feeling less happy than when you came in. I'm not here to make your day worse. I hate that about sometimes making videos about news that's not necessarily positive. But there are obviously ways to spin things in either direction. You could make something that seems really bad seem really good if you twist things enough. And I'm not here to do that. I'm not here to twist it to be super negative or super positive.
there's no twisting. There's just the reality.
But the reality is that no matter what I say, someone's not going to like it, so all I can do is just go.
Holy shit, he actually made it through a jump? The entire 4.0 cycle, I have not made it through a single jump. Oh yeah, he told me he made it through one.
Forward
Yep,
and
this
try
is
to
the
be
one.
as based and honest as
Well,
possible.
there.
So let's go straight forward and get through this list. All right, let's first start with the official list of what's been removed from 4.0, as some of you guys might not be fully up to speed. Beginning with what I'm just going to call ship systems and systems in general, because this feature set is really interconnected even though they separated them into individual cards, starting with life support. Life support was supposed to be the system that would enable or disable gravity and the presence of oxygen
I'm not going to lie, I'm so happy life support isn't in, because I think it was going to be a huge problem.
within a room of a ship. Air would be simulated in that you could evacuate air from a room or decompress it by opening an airlock, throwing everybody out, presumably that would be standing in that room, along with any loose debris, which would have been super fun to do to friends and unsuspecting foes. Alas, not coming in 4.0. Also, who doesn't want to turn off gravity to toss about borders? I mean, come on, that's super fun. Then there was engineering, which would be very hard to summarize in a short form. It's basically the systems that allow a ship to come to life. You've got a network of different connections within a ship that can be disabled through accurate fire of another ship through weapons precision mode. This is how you could disable a ship without blowing it up, and players could go about repairing different systems of a ship, like the components, replacing them, or replacing the fuses that connect everything together. The whole thing would have made ships, especially large ones, much more interesting during combat, and probably last quite a bit longer, given that they wouldn't just
more than last longer. I don't think you're going to see ships die. Like, if we take what we learned from the insurance talk, the death of a spaceship, those kind of things, their goal is absolutely for you to go get your ship and repair it. It will not blow up. Go play the engineering demo if you could. Ships don't blow up anymore.
Explode once they got down to an arbitrary health amount. But it would also make salvaging a lot more interesting, as you could conceivably strip those components or add them to a Hulk to re-enable it and fly it about. Then, of course, there's fire hazards and fire extinguishers, which are two cards but one feature, basically. All of this again, feels like one big feature. Fire hazards are spawned from a certain element overheating during combat or being shot at specifically by precision targeting of an enemy ship, and that would cause a fire to start on your ship and spread unless it was put out or unless you basically got rid of the air within your ship, which would have required you accessing the engineering panel, finding out where it was on the ship, and then selecting the room and evacuating the air. Alongside the repair stuff of engineering, it would have made operating large ships and even medium-sized ships a pretty exciting prospect, even when going up against NPCs. Then there's charge and drain, which is more than just...
I was so sad when I saw this because I was so excited for charge and drain. The reason I was so excited for charge and drain is distortion damage has always felt out of place, not really where it could be, should be, would be. And I thought that this was really going to take a huge step to making an entirely different damage type be a decision, a choice that we make. Do we bring lasers? Do we bring ballistics? Do we bring distortion? Do we bring a combination of all three? You know, that kind of thing. And it would add a wrinkle to the mix of PvP and PvE combat that I thought would be really, really cool. And that includes the defense from it, right? Are you scouting ahead of time of who you're fighting against? Are they using distortion damage? Are you going to bring extra components on your multi-crew ships? Are you going to have people removing and draining distortion damage from your components? Those kind of things.
The ship stuff, it's actually connected to other systems like stations and outposts. This is how you would basically be able to turn the power off of a station or outpost, or activate it or repair it. They would have very similar systems then to ships, just a different configuration. Then solar bursts, which were actually in during the Pyro Playground way back when it was tested. I was part of the test. It would basically make the sun flare up and cause a lot of damage and hurt players who didn't take cover. Apparently that needs a lot more work. And then the transit system refactor. Transit systems aren't working very well with server meshing, so the idea was for them to go rewrite the code and make it work better.
Morph, they're not working well without server meshing. It's just going to get worse.
So that's the official list, but what about the stuff that never made it onto the cards?
And the dev who screwed it all up is in chat right here. Will Meme for Food. Everybody point and laugh. He screwed it all up for us.
Well, that's what's next. Personal hygiene and tears and sweat were all part of the same kind of system that they talked about, the idea that you had to wash yourself and it would affect your relationship with NPCs. That seemed pretty far in the future. I'm not sure why they decided to bring that up as part of the 12-month thing, but they talked about it, so I'll include it here.
Why no VIP? He doesn't work at the company anymore. He left us with a broken transit system and said deuces and just left.
Here. RTGI, or Ray Trace Global Illumination, that was talked about recently. Apparently it's going to be pushed back because it needs to have more work focused on with it with Squadron 42 first, and then they'll eventually work on it for Star Citizen, so it's still in the works, but it's quite a whiles away. Then there was Melstrom Destruction, which was meant to be both for ships as well as outposts. So you could destroy the world, basically blow up outposts, and ships would...
Bro values work-life balance, shame. Oh, it's just a joke here, guys. Like, he actually fixed the transit system for, I think, OCS, and then was like, yeah, I want to move on to a different company or something like that. And he still hangs out, watches Star Citizen, gives us insights onto game development and specifically Star Citizen game development occasionally. And, you know, he hasn't been there for years or anything. It's just a meme and just a joke. Yeah, he didn't want to make, if I remember, he didn't want to make transit systems. He wanted to make gameplay. So he went to a company that he was making gameplay at.
Destruct dynamically and fall apart in combat. I actually do remember that being part of the cards at one point. I just don't know when it disappeared. FPS Scanning, which was a feature that was removed from the roadmap several times throughout the past couple of years. The ability to scan your local
the wall hacking, good, get it out of here.
For collectibles, for other players, so they would show up on the mini-map as well as on your mobiGlass. It was supposed to be a utility as well as a combat utility. Inventory improvements. Now this one's a little bit strange. It was kind of a weird, quick thing that they showed at SidCon where you could add pouches to your player's clothing. It looked like a really interesting way of attaching different inventory items. That's kind of
not mentioned at all at CitizenCon this year, by the way.
Disappeared. EVA push and pull plus grappling. We've gotten half of this. We do have the new EVA system, but we still don't know when we're getting the push and pull and grappling system that they showed off. No word on that.
It's not that there's been no word on that. Lots of talk on that in the monthly reports, but no word on when.
Either. Next is the ladder rework. We've needed ladders to work for a long time. Sadly, that's also somehow disappeared along the way. The sliding mechanic is also no longer.
How do you show these things in the state they're in and them not be in game? Is the part as a non-game developer that I cannot comprehend or understand. I cannot comprehend how you can go on stage 1 year ago, show something in that state, and not have it available to us at this point. You could say I don't understand game development. Sure. But you're going to have to explain to me why it makes sense. Because it doesn't.
Longer being talked about. Don't know what happened to that, but still looking forward to seeing that in the game. Environmental hazards were briefly shown and discussed with
that's whatever
things
to me
like
personally.
Radiation, which looked very interesting and would have made a lot of environments feel more dangerous and alive. Physical interactions with different
I was looking so forward to this, believe it or not. This was one of the things I was really excited for.
Systems. So being able to physically press a button made the world more tactile, and they showed off how much of an impact visually this would be, and it looked exciting. Unfortunately, that as well fell off the radar. They made a little bit of a deal about improved stealth as part of gameplay, as well as new takedown animations to restrain people. This was...
I will say the AI are, as bad as they still are, you are able to stealth a bit around them. I think we started to notice that a tiny bit this year to throw CIG a little bone, but that's about it.
Presumably also going to be part of the new bounty hunting system, which was originally on the cards and also was taken off.
Yep.
Weapon degradation and wear and tear to match the suit stuff that we already have. Our suits currently collect dirt and snow when you're outside. Weapons were going to do that, but they would also degrade, and whether or not you let it be out in the open would affect that. So weapons would start to misfire, they wouldn't work quite as well, and the audio would change for them as well. It was a very cool system that they showed off. No word on that. It's never been on the cards. Next are some new weapons. One of them I remember was the Volt weapon, but there were a couple others that they talked about, which
Ooh. I still think these will probably make it into 4.0. Thoughts? Maybe not Volt. Well, maybe Volt. I think the weapons are going to make it into 4.0. This is Cope. Get your copium emotes if you want. But I think the current 4.0 testing is very much a server meshing and jump point test and not really anything else. I've done all of the possible contested zone type content, which is supposed to have rewards at the end. The rewards feel incredibly placeholder. I would not be surprised if around wave 1, 2, 3, and live of 4.0, whenever that is, we'll see actual rewards, the pyro guns, and so on be implemented. Might be Cope, But I think of anything he's mentioned here that might actually end up on the list that isn't currently on it at the moment, I would say this is it.
Which also haven't made their way into the game.
Components are bad. Well, I don't know if the components are bad in the contested zones or whatever, but they're not. You could buy them on the store. Like, they're not anything that isn't already in game. There's nothing unique to anything really in the contested zones at the moment when you would expect there to be. I don't think the rewards
weapon was again on the cards at some point, but again, it disappeared. Specialized armor for different things like PvP.
But Morphologists, all of these armors are in. The art of them.
Or flight, that was talked about last CitizenCon. Again, it was revisited this CitizenCon, so clearly it's not made it in, and it still seems quite far away.
Yep.
The quantum travel rework, which would have made quantum travel more physicalized. Right now, we are actually teleported along a line across the universe virtually, and it's not actually happening in the gameplay space according to the server. This was surprising to me when I learned this last year, but they wanted to physicalize it, which was what was going to allow them to add the next part of this feature, which I was really looking forward to, quantum boosting. If you've not played Star Citizen before, or maybe if you've just heard about Star Citizen, you know that travel times are a really big deal in this game, and quantum boosting was going to help us a lot for those short range travel points to get across a planet.
Whoa. I just noticed for the first time these like little tooltips that are popping up on the ships. That's never happening.
Surface or between even moons within a small planetary system within a larger solar system.
That's awesome, though.
Ground vehicle loading and unloading on cargo lifts. Now, we thought we were going to get
those. We saw them a while ago. I know, Wanted, because that was at 2023 CitizenCon. I just noticed them now.
This with the cargo update a couple updates ago, and it never ended up coming back, and they've not talked about it. So I don't know what's happening with this, but I thought we would at least get it in 4.0. Unfortunately, that's not happening. Obviously, it's not in the cards. Base building was also on the list of things within the next 12 months. Now,
why I'm saying we're not going to get them is performance.
I'm just putting this in here because it's one of the things they talked about, just to be thorough. I never personally thought this was going to be possible. It seemed even far-fetched to them.
They never said it would be in 4.0 Morph, did they?
When they said it. So I'm not going to hold them really to account on this one. But again, just putting it in here because they said it. And last, but probably most important of all, because it was the one that I was personally looking forward to the most, was the change to the reputation system specifically for Pyro.
Me too, Morph, me too. I so badly wanted it to be like this. I jump into Pyro, I'm kind of neutral. I do a couple missions, and one faction is in control of one station, another faction is in control of another station, outpost. So I am gated from where I can go and where I can't. And I think we're going to see a tiny bit of that, but not to the extent. Like, I thought Pyro, that was like the idea of it, was to have this reputation system that kind of all the work that was going into Pyro was for that. Right? Like, we have all these different factions and this infighting and this power struggle. And I thought that that's what Pyro was going to sell to us, that we can have that at, you know, in this quote unquote small scale. Like, obviously Pyro's huge, but on a grander scale throughout all of the game. But clearly that's not happening.
Was talked about a lot in context with reputation, because one of the issues with having a lawless system is that you still need some kind of rule to govern the way that players behave. So Pyro was meant to originally have a reputation system that would kind of incentivize or disincentivize the way that players would go about their actions within the system. The idea being that if you attack a certain gang, that gang wouldn't like you, and because the gangs own space stations, they wouldn't let you land and refuel. And with Pyro being as big as it is, that would be kind of a big deal. You would want to pick the faction that you thought would have the best chance of giving you an advantage over other players and stick with them to rank up in their reputation system, effectively also giving you a means of finding some kind of progression in the game. And this progression would
not just progression, But like getting locked from stuff too, I thought would be really cool. Like just not being able to go to a certain place, I thought would be because of the choices that you made. Like choice mattering.
Have rewarded
Not
us
just
with stuff
reputation,
like
not just
better weapons, exclusive
progression.
weapons, and exclusive armor that they showed off, and is to some extent actually in the game as of a few patches ago with the Duster stuff, and now with 4.0 with some of the other factions. Alas, those armor systems and weapons are not hooked up to reputation at all. In fact, there's no gatekeeping whatsoever with reputation as of right now with this 4.0 update, according to the cards and according to the Evocati build. This system was the biggest surprise of all to see not make it in, because I thought it was an integral part of Pyro.
Yeah,
it would have made it a
same.
much more interesting addition to the game,
Thought it was the
instead
point.
of just making it essentially a very pretty extension of the already existing systems, which is why I
Red Stanton.
recently called it Dark Stanton 2.0.
Dark Stanton,
I know
there
it's
you
a
go.
bit of a negative way to refer to it, but it's how I honestly feel. Beyond those features, there are plenty of others I could have referred to that weren't directly talked about in last year's CitizenCon, like the whole economy update, but those weren't heavily emphasized, so I'm gonna leave those ones out. I'm sure you guys can add to this list down below if you feel like it, but at this point, I want to give you guys the explanation that CIG gave us for why this is happening. The official response is that the engineering team needs more time to focus on getting server meshing right with pyro and jump points for the upcoming patch, still leaving some smaller features in the game that aren't too much of a change from what we already have. And before you try to argue that I'm wrong here and that they do make a big difference, I'll remind you again what CIG said. They're removing those features because they need to focus on server meshing. Every single feature they add to the game affects the server meshing code. So the stuff that they're leaving
It just generally affects stability, right?
presumably
Not just
doesn't
server
have a
meshing.
big effect because it takes advantage of already existing code or code that's not been changed too much, not giving them too much to worry about in order to focus on establishing first a strong server meshing code on which to attach everything else to. Unofficially, I think it's a rather clever marketing move. If they can get it out by the end of the year to the live environment, that means that even players in a
The scene looks so good. The scene looks so good, I think, because of the fact that the sunlight doesn't pass through the clouds. The fact that there's this line of clouds, I think it's so good.
Free Fly can try it. Remember that Free Fly players can't
Scarlet,
experience
dude.
the
That
PTU,
emote.
which would hopefully bring this year's funding at least in line with last year's, as it's currently falling behind.
I'm dying.
The other reason is that I don't think that they have the resources that they needed to get all those features in this year, given that Squadron is probably taking longer than they expected, which is supported by a lot of circumstantial evidence, like the theme of this year's CitizenCon was the UEE Navy on board a UE capital ship carrier, and they had like a big F-7A mock-up like you were on the flight deck, and it was in Manchester where the studio is located that's working on Squadron 42. They also originally had planned to do a red carpet gala event at the venue that Atmo ended up
How many times do we bash CIG for making half-ass features? The decision to push all of the features is the best decision in years. Yep. No one's saying it's a bad decision, but a good decision can still be a bummer, right?
taking over. And those types of events
And yeah, the features will still be half-assed, my dude.
are usually high profile, where you invite like big stars to do PR or marketing. So they probably were going to have like the big stars of Squadron, like Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, Henry Cavill, probably whoever they could get to come over. Probably not all of them would have. And if this speculation based on evidence is correct,
Dude, that PO is insane. That was probably one of the coolest things I saw at CitizenCon was this.
well then I think it makes a lot of sense that they don't have resources. After all, resources are shared directly between Squadron and Star Citizen. This is not a conspiracy. They've said it directly, so it makes a lot of sense. But you can understand why that last part wouldn't be a very good official reason to state why 4.0s had to be stripped back a little bit. Now, personally, obviously, I can't speak for anybody. I'm going to only speak for myself here, to be very clear. I'm not happy about the whole situation. I don't like that they've removed gameplay, no matter how good the reasons that they gave
Yeah,
were.
you could still be
I
upset or
personally
bummed
don't
out.
think that there's anything to be gained by lowering expectations, so I try to be measured and understanding in response to disappointing developments like this. But still, I try to hold them to the same high expectations that they've communicated they hold themselves to. That's why I think it's alright to be disappointed in CIG and ask them to do better when they don't deliver on the things they said they wanted to. On a positive note,
But no, you're just being negative for the clicks. No, of course not. You wouldn't want them to be successful or have success. You're just being negative for the clicks.
Server meshing again is really important, so if they do get that working very well, it's gonna improve the prospects of the game immensely. So we've got that to look forward to and to test going into the end of the year. But what are you guys feeling on this whole situation? Let me know down in the comment section below. Please be civil, and if you are, I would love to engage with you guys down below. Otherwise, if you like the video,
okay, that looked like shit. What? Them just appearing? That looks so bad.
if you are, I would love to engage with you guys down below. Otherwise, if you
so bad, what just happened?
You like the video, you know what to do.
I never noticed
Hope to see you guys in the next one.
The way they popped in there looks super weird. I never noticed that before. Yeah. So I loved this video, Morph. I gotta say, I loved it. I loved it because it was reasonable, and it was pointing out, ooh, going back to 2023 is such a nice little gotcha there. And I think it's like, yeah, man, like it just reminds you of what CitizenCon is, right? And it's not real. And it should never be treated as real. And it shouldn't be hyped in any way, or the way CIG does. It shouldn't take so much time away from development the way it does, because they used to argue that CitizenCon pushes the game forward. Do you guys remember that? Where they said, I remember Brian Chambers used to come in here and I'd be like, dude, you guys are spending all this time on these conventions and not the game. And he was like, well, you know, it pushes the company forward. Like, we work really hard on tech and these things. It's like, yeah, but then the game gets delayed, gutted, and then you move on to, like, you don't do what you were intending to do because of it. And I think this reduction of 4.0 is showing it. I think former CIG dev, who I think it is, if I can remember correctly, is not very happy about him being a former CIG dev. I'll just leave it at that. Said something along the lines of, you either do the Squadron 42 demo or you do 4.0. And CIG chose the Squadron 42 demo, and that's why 4.0 is the way it is. There was only so much bandwidth for so many things. CIG chose CitizenCon over Star Citizen. And I'm tired of that, man. Put the game first. Now, I don't know if that's true, but just put the game first, man. So sick of it.